Imagine this for a moment. Your boss makes a decision that feels small, almost routine, something that happens in workplaces every single day. No big announcement, no dramatic moment, just a quick action or a casual response. But what if that one decision, that one mistake, quietly sets off a chain reaction that could cost them thousands of dollars in legal consequences? Not because of something extreme or obvious, but because it crossed a line they either didn't understand or didn't think anyone would notice. This is the reality many employees don't see. Workplace violations don't always look dramatic. They don't always come with clear warning signs. In fact, some of the most expensive mistakes employers make are the ones that seem the most normal at the time. A denied request, a careless comment, a policy applied the wrong way. These moments often go unnoticed in the moment, but under the law, they can carry serious weight. And once that line is crossed, the situation changes completely. One of the most common and costly mistakes an employer can make is retaliation. It often starts with something simple. An employee raises a concern, asks a question, or reports an issue that doesn't feel right. Maybe it's about unpaid wages, unsafe conditions, or inappropriate behavior. At that moment, the employee is exercising a protected right. But if the employer responds negatively by reducing hours, changing responsibilities, creating pressure, or even terminating the employee, that response becomes a legal problem. What makes retaliation so serious is that it doesn't require a long history or repeated behavior. Sometimes, a single reaction is enough. A sudden shift in treatment right after a complaint can raise questions. A decision that seems unrelated can become significant when it follows a protected action. And once that connection is established, the focus is no longer just on the original issue. It expands into something much bigger. The employer is no longer just dealing with a workplace concern. They are dealing with a legal risk that can quickly become expensive. Another mistake that often goes unnoticed is misclassification. This happens when an employer labels a worker as something they are not, most commonly as an independent contractor instead of an employee. On the surface, it may look like a technical detail, something administrative, but the consequences are far from minor. Classification determines everything from pay structure to legal protections. When an employee is misclassified, they may miss out on overtime pay, minimum wage protections, and other benefits they are legally entitled to. Employers may think they are simplifying things or reducing costs, but if that classification is incorrect, it can lead to back pay, penalties, and legal action. And the longer the misclassification continues, the bigger the potential cost becomes. What started as a simple label can turn into a significant financial liability. Then there's the issue of unpaid wages, one of the most straightforward but costly mistakes. It might be a few extra minutes here and there, time spent finishing tasks after hours, or work done during breaks. Individually, these moments may seem insignificant, but over time, they add up. And the law doesn't ignore small amounts. If you worked, you are supposed to be paid. Employers sometimes rely on the assumption that employees won't track every minute, that they won't question small discrepancies. But when those discrepancies are identified and documented, they can form the basis of a claim. And because wage laws are taken seriously, the financial consequences can grow quickly. Back pay, additional damages, and legal fees can all come into play, all because of time that should have been compensated from the start. Harassment is another area where a single mistake can have lasting consequences. Employers have a responsibility to address inappropriate behavior in the workplace. Ignoring a complaint, dismissing concerns, or failing to take action can turn a manageable situation into a serious issue. It's not just the behavior itself that matters. It's how the employer responds. When an employee reports harassment, the expectation is that it will be taken seriously. If it isn't, if the situation is allowed to continue, the employer may become responsible for the environment that develops. And that responsibility can carry significant legal and financial consequences. Wrongful termination is another example of how one decision can change everything. Firing an employee might seem like a straightforward action, especially in at-will employment environments. But the reason behind that decision matters more than many employers realize. If the termination is connected to discrimination, retaliation, or the exercise of legal rights, it crosses a line. The challenge is that these connections are not always obvious at first. They are often revealed through patterns, timing, and documentation. A termination that follows a complaint, a pattern of behavior that suggests bias, or inconsistencies in how policies are applied. These details can transform a simple decision into a legal issue. And once that happens, the cost is no longer just about replacing an employee. It becomes something much larger. Pressure tactics are another subtle but risky mistake. Employers may push employees to sign documents quickly, accept changes without question, or agree to terms they don't fully understand. This pressure might not seem aggressive, but it can still be problematic. Employees have the right to understand what they are agreeing to. When that right is ignored, it creates a situation where consent is questionable. And when agreements are challenged, the focus shifts to how they were presented. Was there enough time to review? Was there clear communication? Was there any form of pressure? These questions matter, and the answers can determine whether an agreement holds up or becomes part of a larger issue. What makes all of these mistakes so significant is not just the action itself, but the context around it. Timing, communication, and documentation all play a role in how a situation is interpreted. A decision that seems harmless on its own can take on a completely different meaning when viewed in context. And that context is often built from small details that accumulate over time. This is why awareness is so powerful. When you understand what to look for, you begin to see patterns that were previously invisible. You start noticing when decisions don't align with the law, when actions feel inconsistent, or when something simply doesn't make sense. And that awareness allows you to respond in a way that protects you. Documentation becomes essential in these situations. Keeping records of conversations, saving messages, noting changes in behavior. These steps turn your experience into something concrete. They provide a timeline, a sequence of events that can be reviewed and understood. Without documentation, it becomes one person's word against another's. With it, the situation becomes much clearer. Taking action doesn't always mean escalating immediately. It starts with understanding. It starts with recognizing when something crosses a line and deciding not to ignore it. From there, you can explore your options, seek advice, and determine the best way to move forward. The key is that you are no longer passive. You are aware, informed, and prepared. What employers often underestimate is how quickly a small mistake can grow into something bigger. A single decision, a single reaction, a single oversight, these moments can set off a chain of events that lead to serious consequences. Not because employees are looking for problems, but because the law is designed to address them when they occur. And for employees, the most important realization is this: you don't need a dramatic situation to have a valid concern. Sometimes, it's the small things, the everyday moments, the decisions that seem routine, that carry the most weight. Because those are the moments where lines are crossed without anyone realizing it, until it's too late. So if something feels off, if a decision doesn't sit right, or if you notice a pattern that doesn't make sense, pay attention. Because what may look like a simple workplace issue on the surface could actually be something much more significant underneath. And in many cases, that one mistake, the one your boss didn't think twice about, could end up costing them far more than they ever expected.